Nerderotic.com.
Welcome to Nerderotic Live and another review of The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 3, Chapter 11, The Heiress. And this show is turning into who's the important guest star this episode. And you really notice that in the second episode when it's Frog Lady and she can't speak an understandable dialect, and we have to rely on Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian. And I see where Pedro Pascal has a beef. I've said it before that I do think he's going to have to take off his mask at some point, or he's just going to be your conduit to the next guest star, which will be the most important thing in this show. Overall, I thought the episode was the best of the season. This one was pretty good, but I did see a little bit of what we were worried about. And what am I talking about? Intersectional feminism. Now, it's micro intersectional feminism, and we'll get there. Again, I have to reset that I watched this, I observed this as someone who was no longer a Star Wars fan. As a casual viewer that is semi-entertained by some of the episodes, but they don't really stick with me. So when I say this is a good episode, I mean it. I don't think there's anything horrifically bad in it, except for what we're going to talk about in a moment. But there's good things too, like Katee Sackhoff. So again, not much happens. This is, I think we understood in the second episode of the second season, which is this season, what kind of a show we're going to get. And if you're waiting for more sophisticated storytelling around the corner, not going to happen. It's cartoon storytelling. That's what it is. It's live action cartoon storytelling. And I think that is very deliberate by Disney. I said it in my last review, I think they were shaken to their core by their failures. And it was a failure that they had to come to terms with this year. They weren't aware of their failure until this year, until they had to start actually counting the beans and which beans related to which thing in their giant corporation. And believe me, that's what they've been doing over the last few months. They have been poring over the data, poring over the books. And okay, we really need to know how successful each individual thing is, because we're going to have to cut some stuff. We're going to have to cut some staff, and we're going to have to cut some shows, even though we have announced 16,000 Star Wars shows. So this episode, the Mandalorian is dropping off the Frog Lady. Remember, we did not finish our mission from the last episode, and we land on the planet Trask, which I just found out the name. They probably mentioned it, and I missed it. It's an ocean planet. It's got Mon Calamari. And the Frog Lady meets Frog Dude, and they have a very touching scene in Froggish. And they take off, but not before they tell the Mandalorian, who gave her a ride in the first place because she knew where Mandalorians were. No, it's her husband knows a guy who knows another guy. The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda go into a restaurant. They have a little bit to eat. They talk to the waiter, and he says, "Oh, I know somebody." So he takes them to somebody else, and they offer them a boat ride out to the Mandalorians. And they get on a boat. The ship, by the way, the Mandalorian has to get his ship fixed because he had a very rough landing. It didn't even land on the dock. It landed into the ocean itself, and he's paying to get it fixed. So he's got little Baby Yoda with him. They get on the ship. There's a little chit chat, and they're all, "Hey, we've got this big monster." I forgot the name. Doesn't matter. You want to see it get fed? And Mandalorian's like, the kid might want to see it get fed. So they feed the monster, and then one of the guys kicks Baby Yoda into, like, he's in his little crib, and he hits it with his little spear thing and knocks it basically right into the mouth of the monster. Baby Yoda's able to close his little capsule before it gets swallowed. Mandalorian dives in, they put a cage over, and they're going to trap him for his Beskar steel. Mandalorian can't get the child out of the monster. It looks grim, and 3 Mandalorians fly down and kill everybody on the boat. The Mandalorian gets pulled out, and I guess he's exhausted, and he's all, "Save the child, please." He's a full-on Manzel in distress. And the 3 Mandalorians are Axe Woves, Casca Reeves, and Bo-Katan. Now, I don't know if I got the first 2 names right, and I don't really care. Bo-Katan, of course, is from the Clone Wars, and of course, Rebels. While the Mandalorian is manzeling, Sasha Banks' character dives in and saves the child and does everything that the Mandalorian could have done. It was clearly done for female exhibition. And they were also trying to show how badass these 3 Mandalorians are. And I guess you could explain that, but there's a problem with that. This happens again later in the episode. It's subtle, but it's there. Now, if it stays this subtle, it probably won't bother me very much. But Disney has earned this. So I'm not seeing ghosts. This is Disney Star Wars. We know what we're getting. The Force is female. Kathleen Kennedy's still in charge. Pablo Hidalgo is still there. The Lucasfilm Story Group is still involved with this show. So please don't question my questioning of Disney. Earlier on in the episode, we saw Sasha Banks' character Casca Reeves spying on the Mandalorian, which would explain the Deus Ex saving the Mandalorian's ass once again. This has happened 2 episodes in a row, cartoon storytelling, but at least it's explainable. And we actually get some information this episode. And I think one of the biggest problems with the Mandalorian is it's very low information. So when the Mandalorians take their helmets off in front of them, we get kind of a big reveal, and it does explain a lot because they do this all the time in the Clone Wars and in Rebels. And we find out something the Mandalorian doesn't know himself, that he is a child of the Watch, some fundamentalist religious sect that had broken away from Mandalore. According to Bo-Katan, this cult wants to establish the old way. So apparently there isn't just one way. So this is the way might be that is the way.
No way.
There's a lot of ways. So when we say this is the way, it might be the way you're talking about right now, or a specific way in the future, or maybe an older way, but it might not be this way.
No way.
The Mandalorian questions where they got their armor. Then Bo-Katan explains that that armor has been in her family forever, and she is the last of her line, and she wants to retake Mandalore. The Mandalorian says there is only one way, the way of the Mandalore, and takes off.
No way.
When he lands, he sees some form of platform blow up, and we see the Mandalorians he left behind take off. He heads back into town, then gets confronted by the brother of the guy who was going to take him out and kill him for his Beskar and the child. He says, oh, it doesn't have to go down like this. And then once again, Deus Ex Mandalorian, they come down and save his ass. They go into a bar and have a conversation. So the Mandalorians all gather around and talk some more, and we find out that Bo-Katan does indeed want to take over Mandalore. The Mandalorian thinks that it is a cursed planet. At least that's what he's told by his cult, and anyone who goes there dies. And she says, don't believe everything you hear. Mandalorians who want to bring him on a mission. So he's always got to go on another mission to get some more information. And that's what happens. We get, we find out the people he is looking for are the Jedi specifically. And Bo-Katan asks him if he knows anything about him. He says, I don't know anything about him. But she does. She's like doing that, that look like I know something he doesn't know. Bo-Katan is played by the great Katee Sackhoff. She is brilliant in this. She makes the episode, and that's why it's probably my favorite. And you've heard me say a million times before, she would have been a great Captain Marvel. She would have been much better for the role. More mature, more badass, more believable as a badass. Well established from her great role as Starbuck in one of my favorite all-time shows, Battlestar Galactica. Bo-Katan agrees to help the Mandalorian find little baby Yoda's people, the Jedi, if, of course, he goes on a quest, because we have to go on quests in this show. And they want to hijack an Imperial freighter filled with weapons, but there's also something else Bo-Katan is looking for, and it's something we have been waiting to see since the end of Season 1, and we'll get there. The Mandalorian asks if there's going to be any stormtroopers on this former Imperial freighter, and they say yeah, but they can't hit the side of a bantha, and that's one thing I really dislike about this show. It makes the stormtroopers so lame. If stormtroopers look stupid, then Luke Skywalker's win is not that impressive. Same with Princess Leia. Everything they did before is being devalued. It's not as cool. It's not as special. It's just a story. I said this in all of my Star Wars videos before The Fall of Skywalker. What Star Wars is going to be is a section on Disney Plus, a category on Disney Plus. The greatest franchise in the world is being reduced to a little box right next to another little bunch of little boxes that just are a bunch of Disney properties. And this is the danger you're in when you're mucking around in prequel territory. And that is where Disney Star Wars is firmly planted right now, along with their 16,000 other shows, aside from former Harvey Weinstein assistant Leslie Headland's show, which is supposed to be an alternate universe, which might open up another can of worms. Speaking of worms, Sasha Banks. They made a big deal about her being in this series. She uttered one line and sucked a worm. So the Mandalorian drops little baby Yoda off at the Frog family, who he just met. It's not like it's the most wanted thing in this sector, and people are willing to kill and do just about anything for this kid, and they don't look that well off. They could have sold him. He doesn't know that. He doesn't even speak their language, but whatever. The kid's going to be just fine, and this time he didn't eat any eggs, so everyone can rest easy. Now, of course, they attack the freighter, and I'll just run right through it. They're successful. They get the guns, and they're also going to take the entire ship, which the Mandalorian didn't know. Bo-Katan altered the deal, and that was just to create a little drama. So as they're running around just mowing through stormtroopers, the Mandalorian is bringing up the rear, doing absolutely nothing. They give him one little heroic moment in his own show, but he doesn't get the moment. The Imperial commander is calling for help to Moff Gideon, who has decided that it's a little too late for that, and you know what to do. The Imperial commander kills the two pilots and commences to crash the ship. Of course, the Mandalorians make it there in time, and we get a little more information. When Bo-Katan confronts the Imperial commander, she asks if he has the dark saber. He responds with, "If you have to ask, you already know." She offers to let him live, but then he kills himself with some kind of electronic cyanide pill. The Mandalorian, of course, doesn't hear any part of this conversation, but before he leaves, he does ask Bo-Katan where the Jedi are. He tells him to find Ahsoka Tano on a forest planet, because that's all we have in this galaxy now. Desert planets, whether it be a snow desert or a sand desert, and forest planets. I know we've seen jungle planets, and we've even seen Mediterranean planets. What about the other climates? I guess it doesn't really matter. Listen, I did like this episode. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I can't give it a 10 out of 10 on the anti-woke scale because of the intersectional feminism, so I'm going to knock off 3 points for that. 7 out of 10 for that. Biggest problem with this show is it's not that memorable. There's not much going on, and it's really slow for 30-minute episodes. Now, the times have been all over the place. We had a 40-minute plus episode, then a 38-minute episode, and I believe this one was 32 minutes with the credits. But there were things I liked. The effects are great. I have no complaints about the effects, look, feel of the show. It feels as good as Disney can do with Star Wars. It feels like it. Baby Yoda's pretty cute. The costuming is great. The ladies did kick ass as Mandalorians. It wasn't a joke. When they were fighting, it looked believable. They were using their jetpacks. It's like a bunch of Batman running around. It's great. There's also problems with this show, and some of them aren't this show's fault. Again, it exists in the world or universe of Disney Star Wars, and its main character gets reduced as each episode passes. Again, he only had one moment, and this was pointed out. I record these live on Patreon, and this was pointed out by one of my patrons, Draco. Thank you. He mentioned that the Mandalorian only got one moment in his own show. Now, it's not the 1950s when your main character got all the moments, but you would think the Mandalorian would get more than one. Am I supposed to be worried about this empire with a bunch of lame stormtroopers that are just easily defeated? If you look at it this way, a troop of Mandalorians, fully armed, should wipe out battalions of stormtroopers. How could they ever lose anything unless they were just overwhelmed with technology? Maybe. But a broken down empire is not scaring me. It's not making me worried about anything. And the Mandalorian's kind of dumb. He doesn't even know what the way is.
No way.
Yeah, I had to get one more in there. Now, it looks pretty clear to me that if the cult that broke away from Mandalore wants to establish the old way, which was fighting and killing Jedi, and the Mandalorian has a little baby Jedi, and he's leading the other Mandalorians right to their enemy, that this might be setting him up for betrayal, which would be interesting. But it's Disney Star Wars, and they'll probably end up just being friends. Now, I could be wrong about that, and I guess we'll find out. Now, I'm not checked out on this show at all. It is, quite frankly, the best thing out there. Compared to Star Trek Discovery, it's the greatest thing ever made, but that's using the Eddie Murphy Ritz cracker philosophy. If you're a starving man and the first thing you're given is a Ritz cracker, it's the greatest thing you've ever tasted. And I think that is what's behind a lot of the love for The Mandalorian. It simply isn't, for the most part, the vast majority of it, not woke, not filled with intersectional feminism, and it has the great Gina Carano, but we haven't seen her yet. Hopefully, she'll be in the next episode. Now, of course, this episode spawned BewbGate. Unfortunately for the show, that was the one thing the most people were talking about, and not the actual show itself, when they did give us some pretty good information. Yes, Anita Sarkeesian needed some attention, so she decided to pop off about boob armor. Some fine YouTubers made some great videos on the subject. I decided against it because I didn't want to give her that attention. I don't think I'm better than anybody else. I just really didn't want to waste the time. She has every right to sound as dumb as she wants to, and she does it freely, and I'm sure she will do it again. There's a lot of Star Wars news. We had James Arnold Taylor deleting his Parler account after an internet mob led by Mark Hamill shamed him off that platform right after CNN gave it its vote of disapproval, which makes it a perfect place to go. And by the way, I am on Parler. You can follow me there at Nerdrotic. I've already got 8,000 followers. I'm getting better interaction than I am on Twitter. And by the way, after the events of the last year on Twitter, I will be leaving it at the end of the year. And we will be doing it hopefully in a big fashion, as From Heel vs. Babyface has decided to join me, and I look forward to it. Until next time, until the next Mandalorian video, I hope you all have a great day. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what you heard. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.